folks. A bit windy today outside, but I got out to work a bit on this little black locust tree here, and I shot a short time lapse which I'll be posting as a YouTube short probably, but wanted to make like an extended version with a bit of explanation of what I did and why, and what is the general situation here. This is one of our neighbor's house, and this is all chain link fence we have. You can see many ugly cut trees here, mainly a result of people not knowing what we're doing. But then we also have a beautiful young mulberry tree here, which I'm trimming and cultivating to grow more towards our yard, because the neighbors don't seem to like mulberries. We have a rootsucker black locust here and an ash seedling tree. This is also an ash tree here, which I'll be trimming to a low crown, more like for decoration. And this is also a black locust, which has to be maintained. And but today's topic will be this tree here. More generally, it's located in this small grassy area, which we usually use to pitch a tent or put the kiddie pool, or just lie in the shade, because this is the south and this is the north side of the neighbor's house, which very conveniently shades this spot through most of the day. Maybe there's only 2 to 4 hours of direct sunlight here on that grassy piece. So I wanted to have this black locust, which it grew here even before we leveled this whole place, and regrew. It was cut several times, but it continued sprouting, so I decided to use it as a centerpiece tree, and also for shade and for the beautiful flowers it produces. But in the same time, I didn't want it to mess up too badly with the mulberry, because those branches here, they're important for the mulberry tree to reach more towards the light and to have a higher canopy where the birds can be feeding, while the lower branches are what we're harvesting. So I'm creating what here is known as a lollipop crown, which is more or less a globular or semi-globular crown, which requires lots of cuts and lots of trimming yearly to maintain in the shape. The general rule for that is to always cut the top branches, no matter how tall or big they are, at the height you want them to be, or a bit lower. So this is the space which I can afford to have filled with the greenery up to this branch here. So I cut a bit lower and then just trim the whole crown symmetrically. And one of the most important parts is to make as much cuts as possible. Even the smallest branches have to be trimmed at the top, so they can branch out more in the future. Another simple rule to follow is to, when doing your cuts, I'm not sure if that will be visible, yes, when doing your cuts, always cut before a bud which is downward facing. This means that the first branch, the bud which will develop and start growing, it will go downwards. So in the long term you will have more such downwards going branches. We already have a few which started this trend 2 years ago, but in the future more of those branches will start sloping downwards. And even here you can see on this on this little side branch here, it's going already downwards, and I trimmed it right before 2 downward sloping buds, so it will continue more arching downwards. And those other branches which I cut, you can see how vigorous a black locust tree is. This one here easily 1.50 meters and maybe centimeter and a bit in diameter. This is 1 year growth. It grew so much that it even started branching out, and I have many of those branches. The black locust tree is uniquely adapted to trimming, so coppicing, porting, it all works very, very well. And this here is probably a root sucker from another black locust, but you can see where I did the cut and then it started growing upwards, and it's now over 2 meters, and this is in just 2 years. Last year it grew from here upwards 1.5 meters, and you can see that I have trimmed all of the side branches, and this is how I cultivate coppice black locust for garden stakes. In 1 year, maybe next spring, it will be at least 3 centimeters thick at the base, and it will be enough to be cut and used as a pole for the garden. And I wanted to show you 2 more trees, and that will be the end of the video for today. Those 2 black locust trees we used to tie our hammock on, and they were not here when we bought the property, so that means that they're at most 6 years old. If we move upwards, you can see that they're pretty well developed. The upward growth has really slowed down in the recent years. Last year I don't think they grew much, just the very, very tips, maybe 20 centimeters. They already produce lots of fruit. You can see the seeds and the seed pods still hanging on there. And they have started falling down on the ground here, so that means that spring is nearing. But this much growth is possible in just 6 or 7 years for a black locust, without any watering, without much cultivation, besides removing the lower side branches. And here you can see that I cut another root sucker, which is from the same root. This one I cut a few years ago, but this one I cut last summer. It was 4 years old, and this is the diameter which I got for a pole in the garden for a project. And up here, when I cut this branch, you can see I deliberately left the branch cover, this thickened part here, so it can resprout new branches. And I left those and started trimming them up top so they branch out more, and this allows for afternoon shade, because the afternoon sun is over there, and when you're lying in the hammock in a couple of years, this will be a nice shade for anyone who's using the hammock in summer. So that was all for today, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.